Okay, we are recording now. Good evening, everyone. This is Michael Jackson with the Florida Pharmacy Association, and we have on board our panelists for the House of Delegates Board of Directors that will be monitoring this second and final informational webinar on the proposed changes to the Articles of Incorporation. So with that, in lieu of doing a roll call, since we're not really doing any decision-making this evening, I'll pass it over to Eric Larson, who is our Speaker of the House, to give our welcoming comments.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Michael. So thank you for attending session 2 of 3 for this special meeting. The agenda is in front of you there. We're going to be moving through very similarly to session 1. For those of you who are not in session 1, we're going to be presenting the the articles that are up for adoption, and then answering any questions from the public comment period. And then you will also have an opportunity to ask questions as well. This is your final opportunity to ask questions live, as our next meeting will only be calling the question. You're going to be on a 2-minute timer. We'll let you know when your time comes up. We're going to follow the same house rules as session 1. You guys, I don't need to rehash those. You guys have already seen those. They've been published on the website as well. And then we're going to go basically from here. There will be no more questions submitted before session 3. So just to rehash, all of the public comment period is over for written comments. So if you do have anything or you missed that submission, no problem. That's why we're here tonight. So we're going to spend some time and take all those questions and answer them appropriately for you. So without further ado, we're going to, I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda for tonight's meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Cousins. Thank you, Ms. Petsos. What I'm going to do is just call it all opposed. As not, we don't need to call it as, we don't need to call aye. So anyone opposed to acceptance of the agenda? All right, motion passes. Moving on to number 5 here. Article 1, similarly to last week, Chair McCary is going to present Article 1 very briefly. And then he's also going to answer any questions we had on Article 1 through the written comment period. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to the provisions of Section 617.1006 Florida statutes, this not-for-profit corporation adopts the following amendments to its Articles of Incorporation. Article 1. Name. The name of this corporation is the Florida Pharmacy Association, Inc., which we will refer to as the Association. The principal place of business of such corporation is 610 North Adams Street, Tallahassee, Florida, 32301, or at such other place within the state of Florida as may be deemed necessary, expedient, or convenient by the Board of Directors of the Association. And at this point, I will pause to answer any questions or concerns. And also, in addition to that, with the assistance of our Executive VP, Michael Jackson, to answer those questions or concerns that I might not have the proper correct answer to.
And Mr. Speaker, from staff, there were no written comments received on proposed changes to Article 1.
Yep, excellent. I saw that. Okay. Anyone have anything to add? This is that open comment period, so raise your hand if you have anything. This will be the last time we discuss Article 1 before we call the question. This is a pretty straightforward change. I don't think there's going to be much to discuss, but in case you have something, we are open.
I don't see any.
Okay, with no hands raised, let's move on to Article 6, President-elect Mr. Buffington, the floor is yours.
All right, so what we'll do now is do the same thing. We'll read through Article 6. You'll see the stricken changes. The affairs of the association shall be managed by the board of directors, of which the immediate past president shall serve as the chairman. It shall consist of the president-elect, the immediate past president, the treasurer, the executive vice president of the Florida Society, and the president of the Florida Society of Health System Pharmacists, the speaker of the House of Delegates, the vice speaker of the House of Delegates, 9 elected directors who will serve staggered terms, 1 elected student director, and 1 elected pharmacist technician. And we felt that the term there is probably a Scribner's error and should be pharmacy technician. Next paragraph is the officers of the association shall be president, a president-elect, a treasurer, an executive vice president. In the event of death, disability, resignation, non-residence, or removal from office, or any other, the office of any officer of the association, or in the event any elective officer shall for any reason be unable or unwilling to act, then in such an event, the board of directors shall appoint the successor in office of the said officer for the unexpired term of office. So any questions on Article 6?
And Mr. Chair, we did have some comments from some written comments that were submitted for the proposed changes to Article 6.
Okay, I don't see any hands raised, so let's go ahead and review those.
So we have one commenter made some suggestions on Article 6. They're more technical comments, not necessarily relevant to the intent of the draft change. Under paragraph 1 of Article 6, let's see, let me highlight it here. It looked like the desire here was to add, instead of elected pharmacist technician, the suggestion was to insert elected Florida registered pharmacy technician.
I don't I understand the clarification, but is that necessary to make that change, to add that? If TJ is on, I'd like to ask him his thoughts on that.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So if I understand the change, it is changing it to 1 elected registered Florida pharmacy technician. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, because you're in the process of amending the Articles of Incorporation, it is kind of up to you how you want to handle that. As it's written now, 1 elected pharmacist technician, I guess an argument could be made that they didn't have to be a registered Florida pharmacy technician, but I don't think that's the intent of this language. I think the suggestion would just clarify it. So, you know, I don't think it changes the substance of it. It just maybe clarifies what the intent is.
So I have a question.
Sure, yes.
Yeah, so in order to practice as a pharmacy technician in the state of Florida, you have to be registered.
Yes, sir, that's correct. You do not have to be certified, you have to be registered. I think.
Right, so the word registered is almost superfluous.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's kind of where I kind of wanted to go with this. I see where they're saying, because we don't really call our technicians pharmacist technicians, we call them pharmacy technicians too. But again, I don't think that's something that is a critical change. And I think TJ kind of clarified that for us, basically saying that the intent is here. I don't think there'll be an issue with arguing that this language that's posted here. Mrs. Gordon, I see your hand raised, and you are unmuted. The floor is yours, ma'am.
Yes, I think that the issue of registered should be an issue that is handled in bylaws rather than articles, because under classes of membership, you can clearly spell out the technician is registered with the state, and it would be a full member. So I think it's redundant here at this point. We're nitpicking. Thank you.
Yeah, great comment. Anyone else have anything else? Okay. Carmen, I see your hand is still raised. Is that on purpose? Oh, no, okay, there you go. Sorry about that. There's a little delay. Yes, sir, Michael.
And Mr. Chair, I get a sense from the members of the executive committee that crafted this language that you're probably good with the language that's here. I guess my question is, would you want to support the change from pharmacist to pharmacy?
I think, again, I think we're splitting hairs here, to be honest, but I think to keep it consistent with the language in Florida statute, then we would have to put pharmacy technician.
I would agree.
Okay, I will make that adjustment. That is what the members will be shown when they vote on next Tuesday, if there are no objections.
Kathy's muted.
Okay. Is she trying to, Kathy, you unmute yourself? There you go.
No objections.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay.
All right, Mr. Chair, since we've got that one resolved, there still is another comment to Article 6. And this comes from a member who is bringing to your attention in the second paragraph language that is in the existing articles that is not a subject of our discussion this evening, but it was included in the comments, and that is related to an officer being the replacement of an officer due to the non-residents. So it wasn't anything that was included in the proposal that came out of the executive committee. It was just a comment that came from a member who felt that even though you're an FPA member, you don't reside in the state, it should not disqualify you from serving as an officer in the Florida Pharmacy Association. And the association has had officers to serve that weren't living in the state.
Understood. Yeah, I did see that one posted. What my thoughts were, and you know, board members, let me know if you're incorrect. I believe that would be something that would be more appropriate as a resolution to send to the House in regular House session. I'm happy to reach out to the advocate behind that that message, because again, that's something that's been in the bylaws. We're not, or in these articles, my apologies, not something that we're changing. But I will take any feedback.
Okay, and thank you, Mr. Chair. With that, I think there's one final written comment that was provided by a member from West Florida. Let's see if I can figure it out.
Ms. Gordon, I do see your hand raised. I'm going to let Mr. Jackson finish this, and then we'll get to you, okay? I promise.
Okay, it looks like all right, looks like the other comment was really pointed at Article 8. I apologize. So
Okay, no problem. All right, so Ms. Gordon, I'm unmuting you right now. You're recognized, ma'am.
Thank you again. We are speaking of this appointing the successor to said officer for the unexpired term of office. And forgive my ignorance, but since the executive vice president is listed there, does he have a term of office? Or does that position have a term of office?
I'm not, hold on, let me.
On the first sentence, it includes the executive VP
Right.
as one of the officers. And then in the last sentence, it says that shall appoint the successor in the office of said officer for the unexpired term. The question is, does the EVP have a term?
No, it
No,
would be,
ma'am.
go ahead.
Yeah, that's just officers that are elected.
Thank you.
Are you there? Okay. Dan, do you have anything to add to that?
No, Michael, go ahead. I think you're going to say the same thing.
Let's see if like minds think alike. Technically, even though I'm not, well, I think I'm an officer here, I do have a term. My term would end when the board says so. So, there's just no simple way to say that. So whatever happens, if the board says, Jackson, pack your bags, you got to go, then the appointment is done for an interim executive director, and that's done by the board. Did I get that right, Dan?
I was saying the same thing.
That's correct, yep. Mr. Hamilton, I'm unmuting you right now. You're recognized, sir.
Good evening. Question for you as far as officers. If we still consider the immediate past president as an officer, wouldn't you want to go ahead and fix this discrepancy while you're correcting this document and include the immediate past president as an officer?
Michael?
Have to wait till Eric recognizes me.
Yep, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. Okay, Mr. Jackson, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the members, that's an excellent question from past President Ed Hamilton about the listing of officers that are in the Articles of Incorporation. This is really just a fix of the articles that are trying to reseat the board of directors. Yes, this is an issue that was brought up actually as a question from our previous webinar, because the list of officers that are here are not similar to the list of officers that are defined in the Constitution. So what's missing is from the list of officers would be the chairman of the board of directors, who is the immediate past president of the FPA. Also, what's missing is the Speaker of the House and the Vice Speaker of the House that are also qualified, or rather labeled as officers or members of the President's Committee. So I thought I'd share that information with you.
Thank you. Mr. Hamilton, does that answer your question? I'm happy to unmute you again, sir, if you need me to. Looks like your hand is still raised. I'm going to unmute you one more time.
I guess
Okay,
my
yep.
question is, what is your goal? Is your goal just to do a quick fix and move on? Or is this something that would be an easy fix if this is a discrepancy from this document to where it's listed, the other officers are listed in our other documents, and you have an opportunity to fix it so there's not a discrepancy? Is it a hard fix to add those in there, or is it asking too much? Does it get too complicated?
That's a great point. So yeah, this does open an opportunity for us to amend. You know, that's why we're having a special session. But does that change cause any other conflicts? Mr. Jackson, can you help me with that one?
It's a little hard for me to say because the officers of the association generally is elected by the members, of which some of those officer seats are created as a result of an ascension program. So you have the president-elect that's elected by the members, and then the president-elect becomes president. but they're still an officer. The Speaker of the House, or rather the Vice Speaker or Speaker-elect of the House, is elected by members of the House of Delegates. So I don't see that as an issue. Certainly, if you have a majority of the members of the executive committee that are viewing this this webinar, it's up to them to determine whether or not they would object to modifying the officers to include the missing components or not. It'd be good to hear from them. I know as a member of the executive committee, I wouldn't have any heartburn over it. Just to realign that with what a lot of our existing documents are, but I certainly would love to hear from Joe, from Dan, and David.
I'll start off. I think that one of the things that legal counsel recommended was that this is an attempt to clean and clarify the existing articles, and there's nothing that would preclude us from having that discussion following this and amending those as well. This is just trying to make sure that we rectify the articles in a timely manner for the state. So Ed, your original question was actually pretty clear, and that is, this is an immediate fix, but it's certainly not closed or precluded for follow-up discussion for amending.
Appreciate
Hey,
that.
Mr. Speaker, this is Joe.
Yes, sir, Joe.
I think it's a great suggestion. I would be in full support. I don't think that it would materially alter anything that we're in the process of trying to do, other than give us the opportunity to be able to make that that correction and continue to bring the documents in line.
Okay. Yeah, I do agree with Mr. Hamilton's point. If it makes it, if it aligns our documents, correctly, then we should entertain it. Especially in the event that it's not really a huge undertaking, which it sounds like it's not. But again, I think, since this document came from the executive committee, I think it would be, wise that, you guys made that decision. It looks like I have a hand again, Mr. Hamilton. Okay, hold on one second. There you go, sir.
I just didn't lower my hand.
I'm
I'll
sorry.
trust your, I trust your judgment. If it to me, versus having to go back and fix it, if it's a simple fix and it's not going to bog things down, I would suggest you do it. If it's going to bog things down and you don't feel like it's worth the effort, I trust your judgment on that.
Thank you, sir. I do think it's an extremely good point. I do think that it either is addressed now or later, but I will defer to the authors of this to make that decision. So that would be, Mr. McCary, Mr. Bovington, and Mr. Scurro.
I think we heard from Dan. We also heard from Joe Scurro, who supports it. I'm a member of the executive committee. I think that's a quick, easy fix that we can do, a technical fix to kind of create an alignment where we don't have to do it later on. Just have to hear from David McCary.
Yep.
Unless he's in the kitchen somewhere.
David, do you have anything to add?
I'd have lost him.
Okay. Well, I agree with Michael and Joe and Mr. Hamilton on this. I think if this is the opportunity for us to make this easy fix, then we should do it. I don't know if that carries any weight or not, but I think it's a good opportunity.
I concur.
And I don't see any chatter in the chat against a recommendation to do that. And of course, we've had several comments on it, thinking that was a good idea. So I think we're taking it under advice, and it'll be my recommendation to the executive committee to allow that slight modification as the question that comes before the House next week.
Great. Okay.
And I think that concludes all of the written comments we have received on Article 6, Mr. Chair.
Yep. Okay. Moving right along to Mr. Scurro. If you want to discuss Article 8 one more time, briefly.
Mr. Chair, can I ask some indulgence? I'm in my car as I'm on this phone call. Would you be so kind as to read that?
Of course. Be happy to.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So Article 8 reads, I'm sorry.
Let me get it up on the screen so everybody else can see it. I think I have to do a new share. And I think that's it. Is that Article 8 everybody's looking at?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Okay. So amendments to these articles of incorporation shall be approved by the Board of Directors by a 3/4 vote of those voting members present at any regular or special meeting of the Board of Directors called for that purpose. At least 30 days prior to approval, the Board of Directors shall provide written notice of the proposed amendment to the House of Delegates for its review and comment in a manner set forth in the bylaws. And everything else is redacted. Okay, let me switch my screen back here. Thank you for answering that question, Mr. Jackson. Okay. Do we have any? I know we do. Let's review the written submissions, Mr. Jackson, if you don't mind.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll try to go through these as efficiently as I can. We have 2 comments, both pointed at Article 8, and both appear to be focusing in on the transfer of the ability to Delta the Articles of Incorporation to the Board of Directors versus the House of Delegates. So we have 2 raised concerns, one from a member from the Florida Panhandle, another from a member from Brevard County. So at this time, I think it would be appropriate to hear oral comments from the rest of the delegates who are on the call.
Okay. Okay, everyone, this is your opportunity for Article 8. Okay, I do not see any hands raised.
We have Kathy, who has raised her hand.
Oh, sorry, I don't get to see the panelists raise their hand. Sorry. Let me, Kathy, if you don't mind, let me have Mr. Hamilton first. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Hamilton, you're recognized, sir.
Okay, thank you. Well, I attended the first call, and I was comfortable with the proposal as I listened carefully, and I was very comfortable with it. But after reading a couple of the comments, it raised some questions in my mind. And so I guess the big question is, I think this is being presented as this is really just affecting the Articles of Incorporation, and it will not affect the bylaws. I think there's a strong feeling that the bylaws should still be in the hands of the House of Delegates. So the question that was raised in the comments got you thinking, well, what would we prevent a future Board of Directors from saying, okay, well, we're going to now change the Articles of Incorporation, since that is our main governing document that supersedes everything else, and change it so that the bylaws now can be changed by the Board of Directors also, and just have to go to the House of Delegates for comment and review, but not final vote. So that kind of raised a red flag for me, and I'd like to hear some discussion on that as to what safeguards are in place to prevent that scenario from happening.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Kathy, you still want, the floor is yours, ma'am.
Well, I was going to say basically the same thing that Ed just said. because I am concerned that this opens us up to a future people being able to affect the bylaws by this document and
Yeah, I
how
think
the bylaws are voted on.
Great concerns, yeah. I think, you know, we did discuss that in meeting one as well. You know, it's hard for me to, I understand exactly where you're coming from. The board of directors, basically what I'm hearing is that you guys don't really trust the board of directors. But they're also elected by the members. So I'm having trouble juggling that, but I do understand what you're saying. You know, also doing some research, I hate, you know, while we're here discussing it, a lot of associations, state associations have got away with the House of Delegates. And I think you guys probably know that. That's why you're also bringing this question up right now. So, but I mean, that's not the path that our executive committee is taking here, because they're actually leaving the bylaws intact and not even in adding it to this. They're redacting the bylaws, you know, the language here. Does anyone have any other comments from the executive committee?
Okay, Mr. Chair, I think I provided some comments on this at the last meeting, and just for those members who are here for this meeting and weren't here for the last meeting and maybe did not get an opportunity to listen to the webinar recorded, I did make mention that I understand. I heard their concerns. I still hear concerns every day. However, please note that there are some changes to Article 6 that are significant. So, for example, in order to make a modification to the articles, would require 2/3 of the members supporting that revision. With this modification to the articles, it's no longer just 2/3 of the quote unquote board of directors. It has to be 75% of the board of directors, or if you have 26% of the board of directors said they don't want to do the change can't occur in the articles. Also, the action I think that you took previously and then kind of endorsing who the officers of the association are by adding in the immediate past president of the association and the speaker and vice speaker of the House. You now have 2 additional voices that are added to the officers of the association that can speak on behalf of the members. Plus, the members could rest somewhat easy in knowing that the 9 regional directors generally are coming from the local affiliate organizations and can help to keep the board of directors from getting off the railroad track. So I hear the concern, and believe me, as executive director, because I have to dance around all this all the time, I am not totally uncomfortable with this change because of the measures that have been put in place. And yes, it is true, this modification makes changes to the Articles of Incorporation, and I'll have to defer to TJ on his assessment. It does create a situation where the bylaw revisions are determined by however the House may want the bylaws be determined, absent any future decision by the board of directors to modify the Articles of Incorporation to say we want to fix the bylaws too. I don't know if that makes sense. Lots of hands raised.
Thank you. Yep. All right, we're going to go to
Chair.
Mrs. Thompson. Oh, sorry, who was that?
That was Gary.
Gary, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm listening to the comments being made, and maybe I'm just not understanding the paragraph in Article 8. It's changing approval by the board of directors by a 3/4 vote, but that still requires the board of directors to notify the House of Delegates in order to review and comment in a matter set forth in the bylaws. So the House of Delegates would probably still have to authorize any change that the
No,
board of directors would want to do, unless I'm just not totally understanding this.
Not to the articles.
To
they
the
would-
articles, correct, right. Right, because we're not talking about the bylaws, we're just talking about the articles.
Correct. So they would get the consideration of the House comments would be factored as part of the decision-making, even by the board on articles.
Right. So it's
Yeah,
not the
that's
board
it.
acting, it's not the board acting unilaterally.
Correct.
The House has to also approve those changes.
I don't think it's the word approve. I think it's comment.
Comment on the, right.
Correct.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to move to, I think I said Mrs. Thompson. You are recognized, ma'am.
Right, and that was basically my question. But I understand that that you're only getting comments from the House of Delegates. However, that means that you couldn't amend these articles of incorporation until after the House of Delegates has met, which is once a year. So
It's not limited to once a year.
Correct.
how would you contact the House of Delegates? By mail?
Yes, and special sessions. There are multiple options.
Just like we're having right now. Yep.
Okay.
Great point, though. Great question. Let's move to, I apologize if I'm not getting you in order by hands raised. I'm sorry. Ms. Lazicki, you are recognized, ma'am.
Thank you. I have both a question and a comment. The first question, I guess, being primarily for Michael. These meetings were open to comment from all of the members of the House of Delegates, correct?
Yes.
So if
Yes, that is correct.
So I guess my understanding and confusion is if most of the members of the House of Delegates truly had an issue with this, we'd have seen a lot more comments or questions from them regarding this point, but we don't. So I guess my comment then would be, I don't see just having a couple concerns over it as being representative of the entire delegation having concerns over it. Those are just my 2 cents, but I'm in favor of the change.
Understand. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, no, that's, and that does come down to the point of why we're, having this many meetings and these many sessions to give everyone an opportunity. And, you'll see that we have, 4 comments total, not all the, delegates attending, but we're trying to reach everyone. So we do appreciate that comment. Mr. Cuomo, sir, you are unmuted and recognized. Good evening.
Thank you. Going to someone I talked to in legal experts, we would have to send out I guess a email or however you want to call it to every delegate. Is that correct? Of the House of Delegates, or every delegation, however you want to call it. And then we would have to get comments back that they are attending or not attending the special meeting.
If I may answer that.
Yes, sir.
Yes, that is the appropriate process that we would take. We would, do everything we can to reach out to the designated delegates to let them know about the meetings, the agenda. We spent a fair amount of hours in preparing for the 2 informational webinars, and we pushed out a lot of information. We have analytics to show where the messaging went to, who opened it, and stuff like that.
Right. The other thing is too, that I heard a lot from comments from a lot of delegates. I heard that at 6 o'clock on a weekday is not appropriate. Most of us work for a living. Most of us are medical pharmacists, that this would be inappropriate. And that we would have to look at an opportunity, if you want feedback, that this cannot happen, as opposed to our House of Delegate meetings during a convention where we plan for it at least a year ahead of time. So I think you would have to write that in the Articles of Incorporation, how you would send that out, according to my legal experts, how you would reach out to the delegates of the House of Delegates, how you would reach out to them to be notified. I think that would have to be in the Articles of Incorporation. Otherwise, you would be, otherwise as someone said earlier, because I was stuck in traffic in Tampa, Dan, you would have to notify them. Otherwise, it could be contested that I was not notified. You would have to, get feedback, like Michael said, that the person got the thing, did not open it. And then I would like to see how many people were notified, what the things were, and so on and so forth. As Ed Hamilton said, this could be very well contested. And we saw what happened a couple of years ago at the House of Delegate meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Como. Your time is up, sir.
Thank
We'll
you.
come back to you in a minute, okay? I appreciate that.
That's no problem, but I think you're going to see some feedback.
That's what we're here for. No, we want feedback. That's why we're spending this time. And that's why we're having 3 sessions, 2 informative sessions. I'm sorry the time's not working out. This was a time that was, listen, it's not good for me either, trust me. But we're trying to carve out time because of the importance of these issues. Mr. Jackson, do you have any comment or any clarification on some of those points for him? Or should we defer to TJ on a couple things?
Well, no, they're all great points. And the only thing is, if you put detailed information in the Articles of Incorporation on how you go about doing certain kinds of things, it holds you to that. So any event that you have a revision in technology and reaching out to members, you have to go back and amend the Articles of Incorporation, which is not always an easy thing to do. There is some language, I think, in our bylaws, which we're going to have to go back and tinker with that as well too. And if there needs to be some guardrails put around meeting notices and things like that, I think there's an opportunity to do that there to shore that up. I hear the concern. Believe me, I promise you, I'd rather be doing something else, especially during these times of COVID. I mean, there's just doesn't seem to be any convenient time to do this. We have struggled over the Christmas holiday season to try to build all this infrastructure so that we can inform our members. I think we're doing, the House Board of Directors has done some amazing jobs in preparing all this for you. We're recording this and making it available, sending out to our members who are unable to be here. Listen to the webinar. We're creating pathways for written comments to be provided. The written comments are being shared with the Executive Committee and the House Board of Directors. We're doing, I think, everything that we have at our disposal to try to make sure everybody's informed. So I really appreciate the comments. I think they're great things to have in discussion as we get through this. But I need to stress that our important issue that's before us is to get our Board of Directors at the seat of the table to manage the association, because you don't want me doing this all the time.
Yeah, I think that's the important point of this is right now we are handcuffed. You see state associations all the country right now working on the COVID vaccine distribution program, working with combating COVID and helping their pharmacists thrive. And we're sitting here having this type of meeting just to get our Articles of Incorporation straight. So I think that is alone in itself showing that we need to get this done, and so we can operate as an association, so we can do the work that really needs to get done, and that's reaching out to our members and helping them, with what they need. And that's the only reason why we're all here. So, all right, I have some hands raised. Mrs. Gordon, you've been patiently waiting, so you are recognized again, ma'am. Hold on one second. There you go.
Thank you so much. I am in favor of the amendment on Article 8. I counted up the members of the Board of Directors, and there's a total of 20. So the 3/4 would mean that 15 people would have to vote in the same direction and to meet the requirement. As an elected director, it is my responsibility to canvass my people here in South Florida if there are substantive issues to be discussed at the Board of Directors meeting, because I represent them. I need to get their voice so that I can provide that to the Board of Directors. So I believe that if we, as the elected directors, do our job according to how we're supposed to, anything that needs to be discussed should be discussed prior to any kind of vote. And that, in fact, would then touch back to the House of Delegates, because our delegates also represent our members in the area. Finally, there's all sorts of technology. Today, I found out that there's asynchronous Zoom meetings where you can have a Zoom meeting, but you don't all have to be at the same place at the same time. It's asynchronous. Now, I don't know about this technology, but echoing what Michael said, we don't want to limit how we interact, how we share ideas, how we come to decisions, because we don't know what the technology is going to be tomorrow, much less 10 years from now. So I would support a broader approach, making sure that we're covering what we need to cover to make sure that our association can pivot and can make decisions in a timely manner so that we're not in this behind the 8 ball again in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Speaker, a point of information or confirmation, if I may.
Go for it. You do not need to recognize, my friend. Yep.
Well, thank you, sir. I just wanted to piggyback on what Ms. Gordon had just mentioned in the very beginning of her statement regarding the number and doing the math calculations of 3/4, 75% of the actual board members. Understand, if you continue to read that, though, it also says of those voting members present. So if we don't have a full board, they can still, as long as we have a majority to do a quorum, then it doesn't even need to be that high. And that needs to be considered, because that changes a lot. That number drastically changes if it's a complete unanimous board that's present, or only the members present at that meeting or special meeting that's called. That's something to consider. And I just need to make sure that we're all understanding that. So that's just a clarification or point of information. And thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Okay,
Hey,
I got.
Mr. Chair, this is Joe.
Yes, sir.
May I make just a quick comment?
Sure.
Hey, thank you, everyone. This has been, such a great dialogue, and I just wanted to put this for thought. As we have now sort of drifted towards this issue of, can we trust in the board or can we not, which really seems to be the foundation of the of what's at the heart currently of this discussion. If it's a simple question, if we don't trust the board relative to ensuring that our members through the House of Delegates are able to have a say and a voice and a vote in controlling the day-to-day processes of how the association runs, then where's the line? We're on a very, very slippery slope. If we can't trust them to do something that important, look at all the other decisions of importance that they make, meeting in and meeting out. And I would just suggest, as we go down this path, that we tread carefully, because once we start to go down this road, where's the checkpoint? Where's the backstop? Where's the end? What can we and what can we not trust the board with? And then do we have to put that in the articles explicitly? So I would just suggest that maybe we step away from that issue of trust and not trust, and really kind of embrace the amazing comments that were made from as to the role of a elected member of the board as they represent their membership, and not really dribble on what we can trust them with and what we cannot trust them with. Because if we have an issue with trusting the board, then our problem with FPA runs much deeper, I would unfortunately say, than just the articles. And I just wanted to put that out, not so much for discussion, but just to seek that thought that we really do need to be careful of treading down this very slippery slope. And I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scurro. We have 4 more hands And then after that, I'll probably be closing it down. So I'm pulling up, trying to get you in order. I apologize if I didn't get you in order here, but I'm scrolling down here. Mr. Bregman, you are recognized, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I don't think we need to add any additional detail to the section regarding how the House of Delegates should review and comment. As that sentence ends, it says in the matter set forth in the bylaws. So any detail should be addressed in the bylaws and not here in the articles.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. And I think Mr. Hamilton, you're patiently waiting, sir. So you are recognized and unmuted.
Joe, I totally agree with you. Trust is so important. It's critical. I think where some issues happened was maybe a couple of years ago when it seemed the issue of similar type issue with about changing the bylaws and getting it where the board of directors could make those changes. There was some way that was handled. The House of Delegates felt like they were being excluded. I'm totally on board with the Articles of Incorporation, totally on board with what you have here. You're right. We do have to trust that a future board would not try to manipulate this and add that bylaws in there. I agree that it's important to have the Articles of Incorporation so you can be nimble and can make those changes. Let me ask you now, you current executive committee members, you current officers, do you foresee a future board in the near future taking upon themselves to add this in here and manipulate this and change this and add the bylaws in here too, so the board of directors could change the bylaws? Give me your honest answer on that. Do you really foresee that, or do you feel like we're safe?
Do not see it at all.
It's a great
Joe,
point.
absolutely not. And to agree with you, and as we deal with trust is through action. And 2 years ago, as you know, I was the loudest voice to pull it from the floor because it wasn't ready. It was too much. It was a ship without sails. Last year, I was the one that bifurcated it and said, put the bylaws aside. We need to deal with the articles as a standing entity and treat the bylaws as a separate entity. I couldn't do any more than that. But by that point, to borrow a phrase from Tom, it was all about impression. And at that point, we had lost trust. So I hope that we've won that trust back. And I assure you, there's not a member on this committee that spoke to ever contemplate or take any actions to ever remove the how do we operate day to day from the membership.
And this is Michael Jackson. I sit on the executive committee as well too. Ed, to answer your question, excellent question. I've had to sit underneath 24 boards of directors, and I have learned over the years every single board is different. So it is my hope, my wish, my desire that I can advise future boards to do what the members want us to do and to do what's best for our profession. And as long as I sit in this seat, I'll do everything I possibly can to make that happen. I do feel comfortable in knowing that if there is a desire to add bylaws to this and give the board of directors the authority to make those revisions, that I have to be a strong and a passionate advocate, because I don't want to have to go through this anymore.
Great. All right, so there you go. Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. I think, Teresa, I think you're next. Tom, I see you there, my friend. Oh, who did I just unmute?
I think you unmuted me.
There we go. Good. Sorry, I think I did like a couple people. Sorry, my screen was moving. Okay, ma'am.
Thank you. So I joined the conversation a little late today, so I might have missed some comments. I do want to state that I agree with what Ed just stated. And on last week's call, I did ask how often the articles are amended, and the answer was, rarely. So currently, the way the language is that the House could amend the articles when they need to, and just like you said, we can call a special meeting. So I don't have a problem with the other changes to the articles, but I do still struggle with this one. For the reasons that have been stated or the questions that have been asked. And so while I appreciate your comments, I can say that, sometimes people that we elect don't necessarily end up doing the things that we think they're going to. That happens in associations, that happens in government. So, it's not really a trust factor as far as who you elect, but that sometimes they do not represent you. If they did, Carmen, then, it would never be a problem, but that's not what is happening. So the way our association is structured right now is very grassroots with the House of Delegates. And I still just have concerns about this change because of the things that could be added to it in the future. So I appreciate the opportunity to state those concerns. Also, to the point that was made earlier about not a lot of people raising concerns, I think that Tom's on the right track with his comments about just timing and the time of the week and all of that. I think it's very difficult. Many of us are super busy right now, probably almost busier than ever because of what's happening with COVID and COVID vaccines. So it is difficult to carve out this time. And my guess is that a lot of people do care, but they're also very busy, and it's just a difficult time of year to pay attention. If it wasn't so important to me, I probably would not have done so either. So anyway, just wanted to respond to that comment. I do think a lot of people care, but just have not had the time to do it. So hopefully we'll have a lot of people that are present next week. Thank you.
I think you're muted, Eric.
Sorry, Tom. I just unmuted you. You're going to take us home with the last comment, my friend.
Okay, I agree 100% with Teresa. And again, I have a great line. I think perception is reality. If the officers of the board of directors agree, then make it unanimous. If everybody's on the same page, everybody who's voting, make it unanimous. Chachi just said something. If only one over the majority is there, 3/4 of it could be a problem. So shall be approved by the board of directors by unanimous vote. We're all on the same page. Prove to the House of Delegates we love each other. There it is, black and white. We're unanimous. Why would someone not vote for an article of incorporation? I sat on the board for years. Here it is, black and white. If not, then you're showing the House of Delegates, hey, we got a problem. And 3/4 of us agree with it. So there's your problem. That's what Teresa was trying to tell you. There it is in black and white. Yay. You just saw it. Hey, look what's going to happen tomorrow, the inauguration. Get it through your heads, guys. We got a problem out there. They don't believe us. We're losing memberships left and right. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it. And, I'll just kind of close here because I'm going to have Joe finish here in a moment. I appreciate everyone's comments and everyone's time. And, I understand that, timing and all these other things are tough right now for all of us. And, I do agree with Teresa. Sometimes we elect people that don't do what we want them to do. But I think this 3/4 vote safeguards that, because hopefully you're not going to have 15 of 20 or whatever it may be that are not the elected officials that we want. But again, in light of all this, I appreciate everyone's time. Everyone's really, it's been an hour, so everyone did great. I'm gonna have Joe, close us out here. If you're ready, Mr. Scuro.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Chair, and excellent meeting again. Thank you, Michael, and the executive committee. Thank you for your leadership and commitment. I want to thank everybody on the call tonight. great commentary, great passion. You know, I leave you with this, you know, the strength of any association is measured by how well its members can dialogue with each other. And, you know, I've been just so impressed with everybody. The comments have just been great on both sides of the spectrum. And we're all going to come out of this better than we started. So again, God bless everyone. Be safe. And thank you so much for your time and commitment to FPA and all that you do.
Thank you, Joe. Mr. Jackson, you want to go over the next week in preparation of the last meeting?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the members who are on the call, the 23 attendees and the 9 panelists. Your third and final meeting will be on Tuesday evening at 6:00 p.m. A little bit later on this evening, every one of the delegates will be receiving a special email message asking them to go to a link on our website to RSVP. The RSVP is important because it is at this meeting where we have to do a quorum call. So the quorum will be driven from the RSVPs that go into the website and compared to those who actually show up on the webinar. The question that will be asked on the changes will be presented on Tuesday evening. It'll be a real simple meeting. It'll be a yes or a no answer. And maybe to give you an example of what it looks like, I think I built something like that here. Let me see if test poll, yeah. So here's what's going to look like. And I think panelists, you can't see it. So just before the vote, I've got to demote you down to attendee. But if you're an attendee, you should be able to see the poll. And if you can take a second or two to respond to it, let's see how it works. The question here is, do you support the changes to Florida's Constitution allowing for recreational use of medical marijuana as recommended by the Cannabis Coalition of Florida? And you see the responses are starting to come in. We'll allow enough time for the responses to come in. One of the things that we have to achieve with the changes of these articles of incorporation, we have to have 2/3 vote of the members participating in the House to support it. If we don't get 2/3, then it's not going to happen. It looks like we have about 16 responses. There are still 23 attendees out there. There's 17 responses now. Somebody hadn't done it yet. So I'll just meet with the speaker to determine whether or not to cut the poll off. Okay, so you should be able to see the results that are on your screen. So you'll be able to see how everyone voted. Does not think that this group likes medical marijuana to be used recreationally. So congratulations on rendering a position on that issue. So that's what we're going to see. So again, final message here, make sure you RSVP if you're planning on participating in next week's or next Tuesday evening's webinar. This is where we will be voting on the resolutions. We'll take up resolution 1 and 2 together as one vote. Then we'll 1 and 6 rather as one vote. And then we'll take up resolution 8 as a separate vote. And with that, Mr. Chair, that's all I have to share. And thank you all for being with us tonight. I'll let you get back to your evening.
Thank you. All right. Thanks, everyone. I will see you all next Tuesday, same time. And I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
7:06.
Second.
All right. All opposed? Sounds good. Motion carries. You all have a great night. Have a great week, everyone.
Thank you, Eric. Good
Appreciate
job.
everything. Thanks, everyone.